Our next presenter, we move ahead. So we're at Bremen. We've lost 30 airplanes in the 8th Air Force. On the 9th of October, the 8th Air Force went after the aforementioned targets of Danzig, Alchem, and Marienburg. 18 bombers were lost. So now we move to October 10th. In less than 48 hours, 48 heavy bombers, and I believe it was 17 fighters at that point were gone. And now we move to October the 10th. Presenting today is one of the, certainly the most knowledgeable historian on the 100th Bomb Group, is one of the most dedicated individuals to our foundation, and I'm very proud to call him one of my best friends. Please welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael P. Faley.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mark Copeland, for the introduction. Thank you, Colonel Mark, for your hospitality and letting me do this presentation, or letting us do this presentation to you, the cadets in attendance. I'd also like to thank veteran Captain John Lucky Luckadoo for that riveting description of the Berlin mission. Let's hear it for Bremen, by the way. The mighty 8th had flown October 8th to Bremen, October 9th to Marienburg. One back. And on the evening of October 9th, the teletype from Pine Tree, 8th Air Force Headquarters at High Wycombe, sprang to life for all the bomb groups of the 8th Air Force. They were alerted for another mission, target Munster. The 100th Bomb Group would fly a mission that would forever change the history of the group. The group had lost Major Gail Clevin, and Buck Clevin was the heart of the group. Major John Egan, in this photo, was its heart. These two were inseparable. They were the bravado of the 100th. Both Egan and Clevin, they were thick as thieves. They'd been friends together at 10 airfields over the course of their time in the USAF. And they were both assigned to the 100th Bomb Group as commanders of the squadrons 418th and the 350th. On October 10th, Major John Egan was flying as command pilot with a crew of Lieutenant John Brady, who led the 100th Bomb Group that day. Major Egan was fuming. He had been on leave for 2 days, and his friend Gail Clevin was leading the Bremen mission. When he called back to base with a code asking whether or not he had returned, he found out, he goes, there were nobody that returned to the base. Major Egan was so pissed. He turned around, he goes, I demand to lead the next mission. He probably would have regretted that decision. The Munster mission would solidify the 100th Bomb Group with a nickname, the Bloody 100th, while a young lieutenant, Robert Rosie Rosenthal, right here, whose son is out in the audience today, would start a new legend. Having arrived at Thorpe Abbotts in late September 1943, Munster would be the crew's third mission. They normally flew a plane called Rosie's Riveters, but had been damaged at Bremen. So they had to fly in the Royal Flush. As they took off that day, the crew of Lieutenant Robert Rosenthal had no idea they would be the only 100th Bomb Group aircraft and crew to return to Thorpe Abbotts that day. The objective of the Munster mission was to disrupt the German railway system and targeting the railroad personnel billeted in Munster. What the group would not know is that Hermann Göring had challenged his pilots' courage and tenacity in attacking the American bomber forces. Munster would become one of the most vicious air battles in the annals of aerial combat. The 8th Air Force did not lose the most amount of aircraft on this mission. 30 heavies were shot down, but almost half of those planes were 100th Bomb Group planes. We lost 12 aircraft out of 13. 20 aircraft of the 100th Bomb Group lined up to depart Thorpe Abbotts, Station 139, at 12:37 hours. 7 of them were through a mechanical failure, through not being able to catch up with the formation, had returned to base. That left only 13 aircraft for the 100th Bomb Group to proceed to the target. By the time they reached Munster and to bomb the target, there were only 6 aircraft left. Captain Frank Murphy, navigator on Captain Cruikshank's crew, described the action this way. The German attack came after the 100th in seamless, endless waves. Thus began the most intense, determined, and relentless fighter attacks that any of us had ever witnessed. I talked to my pilot, Charles Cruikshank. He feels that I do that what essentially did us in at Munster was the lead airplane, Brady and Egan, getting knocked out of the bomb run. We were the deputy lead and following John and his plane as it went down for perhaps maybe 10 to 13 seconds, not knowing how bad the plane was damaged. And when we decided to go back into formation, it was too spread out, and we got attacked one by one by German fighters. Out there in the audience tonight is his granddaughter, and I would hope that she would stand up and, Frank, there we go. Chloe. I asked Frank one time, I go, Frank, what were your thoughts? You're looking out the window and you see 4 engines going down in an aircraft that your friends were in. And he goes, what were my thoughts? He goes, I was frightened. He goes, it was terror. It was frustration. It was imminent death. So scary. When they say go, you go. I think most of our guys would rather die than let their crew members down. I could never bear to see my crew go on a mission without me. Cadets, these are the shoulders of the men that you are standing on. I want you to do me a favor. Look to the right of you and look to the left of you. Now look behind you. Remember those faces and remember those people, because someday one of those faces may be the reason that your life is saved in combat or in a very vicious situation. It's a team that makes what happens here and what we're talking about here happen. 10 men going on a crew and being able to make stuff happen. It's important that you remember that. No one person makes something happen. It's teamwork, on the ground and in the air. The 13th Combat Wing consisted of the 100th, the 95th, and the 390th bomb groups. They were successful in attacking the target in spite of concentrated flak and intense fighter opposition. Anti-aircraft fire from the northern defenses of the rural probably contributed to the breakup of the 100th Bomb Group and made the ragged formations appealing to the Luftwaffe. The fighter attacks were equally intense and vicious. There were Me-109s, 190s, 110s, carrying rockets, guns that would fire bursts about 1,200 yards out there, and observe the results and fire more. The attack started at 14:46 hours on the way in and continued until the formation passed the Dutch coast on the way out. That's constant attacks. Hard to imagine when you take a look at the war and the way we prosecute a war today with our air power, that you have these amount of bomber streams up there and you've taken fighter attacks for that consistent amount of time. It's absolutely a staggering thought to look at that. Approximately 300 to 350 enemy fighters attacked the formation, generally consisting from 20 to 40 fighters flying parallel and slightly above. They would peel off, concentrate their attack on one group at a time until that group was broken up and then return to attack the stragglers. Attacks were the most formed from the tail to nose. They concentrated on the 100th at first and then onto the 390th and then the 95th. The 13th Combat Wing bore the brunt of the attacks. John Egan and the Brady crew were last seen getting a direct hit in the belly. Lieutenant Winfrey Lewis said, I could see Major John Egan in his usual light-colored flying jacket sitting in the right-hand seat. When bailing out, Egan and Brady stood at the bomb bay saying, "After you, no, after you, no, after you." Then they had a stitching and 30 caliber gun bullets come right across the top of their head. John Brady turned and said, "I'll see you later, Brady," and out he went out the bomb bay. Lieutenant Atchison, in his aircraft Sweater Girl, tells us next what happened.
And after we dropped our bombs, I was using all my power to try to catch the group in front of us. I was perhaps still a half a mile or so behind the group in front of us when our three aircraft got tremendous attack from the German fighters, and the three of us went down. This was at 12 minutes past the target when the top cover was supposed to rejoin us and would have been real helpful to us at 20 minutes past the target. I was on fire from wingtip to wingtip. I had 4 dead men aboard. I had 3 wounded aboard when I gave the orders to bail out. And after we dropped our bombs,
Many letters like this would be sent home to the families of the missing over the weeks to come. While all the chaos was going around, Lieutenant Robert Rosie Rosenthal was fighting for his life and that of his crew. After releasing their bombs on Munster and turning for home, the fighters returned, and it took every ounce of skill in his dedicated crew to keep from being shot down. During the running battle, which lasted 10 minutes, he was doing chandelles, lazy S's, and violent maneuvers to keep the German fighters at bay. They had battled every inch of the way, from fighter attacks, flak and a rocket through the right wing, to an oxygen system blown out. Engines number 1 and number 3 feathered, 2 waist gunners seriously wounded, but Rosie brought him home. Royal Flush carrying Robert Rosenthal would be the only crew to come back to the 100th that day. I have my own thoughts on why that happened, why we lost 12 planes and Robert Rosenthal is the only crew to make it back. And I firmly believe that the reason for this was before he went into B-17 training, he was sent to Fort Myers to do additional training with the gunners. He was a gunnery instructor and flying the T-6s. Next, there's Robert Rosenthal there, but next to him is Lieutenant Gerald Putnam. His daughter is here tonight. Would she stand up? Nancy's a distinguished member of our organization. Where are you? Okay. They were both at Fort Myers, and you had the additional flying time that was there for you to learn his craft and become that much more proficient as a pilot. Being alone with all those fighters on there, it was that additional training that made the difference. So when you're in your classrooms and you're going, "Oh, this is boring, I want to sleep, I don't want to learn this." I know how it is, you want to get out of there. But the more training you get, the more you listen, the more you take in, may make that difference between survival or death. So learn from all your instructors that are here. Talk to our veterans. They were young, they were your age when they went to war, and they can give you a lot of insight, and hopefully it helps you sometime in the future. Lieutenant Rosenthal would continue to bring his crew home for 22 foreign missions, completing his first tour on March 8, 1944. Target was Berlin. Now, Rosie was pretty much straight arrow. You know, he'd go out, not a braggart, wasn't one of those flamboyant people, but his crew had just finished their missions, and they begged Rosie, Rosie, buzz the tower. No, I can't do that. I can't do that. No. Rosie, buzz the tower. Please, you got to buzz the tower. Well, we just finished our missions. You know what? I'm going to buzz the tower. What he doesn't know is the commanding general of the 13th Combat Wing is dressed to the nines, full Class A uniform, standing on the tower watching the planes come back in because Rosenthal and his crew is going to complete the mission. He comes in low over the tower, and everybody hits the deck. General goes in, mud on his uniform, everything else. Rosie lands, gets out of his plane. The ground crew comes up to him and goes, Rosie, he goes, General was up on the tower. He goes, Rosenthal, you did it again. He goes, you're going to be in deep trouble here. He wanted to keep away from the general as much as he could, and then General Huglin, whose daughter is here tonight, comes up to him and he goes, Rosie, hell of a buzz job. Rosenthal would go on to fly another tour of missions, flying a total of 52. He would break his arm twice, same arm. He would lead the 3rd Air Division on February 3rd, 1945. Target again, Berlin. He was the last to bail out of his plane, and he landed on the Russian side of the battle lines. And when the Russian soldiers came up to him, they had their bayonets and they're sticking him. He goes, Amerikansky, Stalin, Churchill, Coca-Cola. They go, oh, American. While leading the, Rosie would finish as probably one of the most decorated men in the 8th Air Force. And probably when I first met him, he was very reserved. He said, I survived because of my crew. He gave praise to his crews. He didn't relish in the fact that he was there, but here's a man that got the Distinguished Service Cross, got the Silver Star twice, got the DFC twice, countless air medals, Distinguished Service Cross from England. Just an amazing person. And that type of leadership, that type of person, if all of you come out and take something from these talks here tonight on all these missions, you will find out that it was the courage of these gentlemen to go in there and fight against tyranny, fight against terror, fight against oppression, and make something happen. And it's very important. If you take away anything, that's what I'd like you to take away from today. And to show you what type of the oppression that Rosenthal went and did, and how he took it to the extreme, was right here. That is Robert Rosenthal at the Nuremberg trials. After the war, he could not get himself straight to where he felt I could go back to civilian population. He went back in and was actually went back to Nuremberg and actually went in and was part of the trials there. He interviewed Keitel and Göring. And while he was on his way over, he met his wife on the boat. They ended up being married at Nuremberg. John Egan was captured, and after interrogation, after being shot down on October 10th, the Munster mission, he was sent to prisoner of war camp, Stalag Luft III. Upon arrival, he was greeted by his friend Buck Clevin, who had been shot down 2 days earlier. Clevin's first words were, John, you're late. What kept you? Munster was a turning point for the 100th Bomb Group. From October 4th to October 14th, the group lost 20 crews, including squadron commanders Egan and Clevin. New crews, new aircraft, and new squadron leadership would help ease the numbing losses. But more would come. It would take people like Luckadoo, Elton, Blakely, Kidd, Bennett, Barr, Rosenthal, Swardow, ground personnel like Dewey Christopher, Ken Lemons, Butch Ravino, Bill Carlton, William Herlihy, and Bill Clift to get them through the upcoming hard times that they would face. As you will see from Sue Fox Moore and Phil Sampagnaro, briefing on the Black Thursday, Schweinfurt next, the Mighty 8th was at a crossroads. It would take General Jimmy Doolittle taking over command of the Mighty 8th, whose daughter happens to be in the audience, her granddaughter is in the audience tonight, in January of '44, and initiating new fighter tactics, bomber tactics, before we would see the tide turn. These changes included equipping many of the new fighter groups with the Cadillac of the skies, the P-51, a game changer. Finally, in the audience tonight are John Egan's two daughters, Katie and Annie. This is their first reunion. This is the first time they're finding out a lot about their fathers. I would like them to stand up. Where are they? There. That's the engagement photo of their mother and father. Their mother was also a WASP, the Women's Air Service pilot. I want to take this time to say thank you very much to the cadets and everybody that's here. You're our future. You're the people that we're going to be looking to protect our country in the long haul. When it comes to being the first strike, Navy might say they have the carriers. But you know what? We got the B-52, and we deliver the goods. The Air Force you are our strike force. You are the ones that go in there, and you level the playing field in our favor. And I want to thank you for your commitment as young cadets and future officers and crewmen in any aspect of the Air Force that you decide to get into. Thank you very much.